good afternoon, and thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. I'm Duncan Sandford. I'm Managing Director at Digital Lancashire. We're joined by Tom as well, who's going to just watch on this one, Tom Stables. But I'd just like to welcome you along to Reboot 2020. And really, in terms of just engagement, we'll have a panel there so we can chat at the side as well, use the chat function to do that. And after probably about an hour or 50 minutes or so, we'll open up the floor a bit more and you can ask some questions directly, but we'll try and pick those up as we're going along. I'd also just like to, so we are recording the session, so if you have any issues with that, obviously just be aware of that, but obviously it's a great piece of soundbite for us to have these discussions, so we'll be taking that on. In terms of sponsors, just like to thank our sponsors at the moment are ABGI and Hiscox. And so we're just thanking them for their involvement over the course of the 3 days. Just very quickly in context, we put this together as a forum that covers some sort of dialogue really for us to go out and listen and learn and find out just where we're up to generally, but also obviously with the pandemic that's gone on, and we'll wrap some of the questions around that kind of content just so that you're aware of that. In terms of the sponsors, if I can introduce them individually, and I'll ask them just to give a quick resume as I've done that. First, I've got Justin Clark, who has joined us as social media and crisis communications consultant, is the title. So Justin, you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, please?
Yeah, thank you, Duncan. So yeah, I mean, it does what it says in the tin. So I'm a social media and crisis comms consultant. Spent 5 years working in Westminster for various politicians and secretaries of state, moved into public affairs, and then started working in social media at universities and Transport Greater Manchester. Been running my consultancy business for about 2 years, also work as a non-exec director for a few companies, and currently starting up a new business. It's a sort of a tech platform. So at the start of that journey, but that's me.
Great, thank you very much. And because those who don't know, Phil and Justin are actually in the same building, obviously Strawberry Fields, which is the technical hub. I'm sure we'll come on to that, but I could ask Phil Owen, who's Senior Business Engagement Officer, I think, is that right, or Manager? Sorry if I've underdone you there, Phil, but Digital Chorley. Yeah. So whichever, he's top honcho at Strawberry Fields and incredibly well connected. So Phil, if you could just tell us a bit about your role, that'd be great, please.
Yeah, okay, so as Duncan said, my name's Phil Owen. I'm the horrible title, isn't it? The Senior Business Engagement Officer at Chorley Council. There is a little bit in brackets which says digital, which gives me the authority to talk about that. One hat is supporting businesses in the Chorley Borough with the rest of the engagement team. We've been busy with grants and discretionary grants and all sorts of things over the last few months. But my other hat is as the business advisor, digital business advisor here at Strawberry Fields in Chorley, the digital hub, as Duncan mentioned, which is where we are today. So I was responsible with the project team to get the building up and running over the last couple of years. And now my role is supporting businesses, not just in Chorley, but right across Lancashire in the digital and creative sectors. My background is 25 years plus in the IT industry. I've been the director of my own companies. I've helped build companies for other people. In recent years, I stepped aside to be a private business advisor and moved into this role at Chorley Council just over a couple of years ago. Okay, thanks, Duncan.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. Next, I'd just like to introduce Alistair Welsb, who is Customer Business Manager E-commerce for Molson Coors. So, Alistair, just tell us, about your role, please. That would be great, and what you hope to get out of today, I guess.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name's Al Welsb. Currently working at Molson Coors, which I appreciate is not a Chorley-based business. Certainly not at the moment that I'm aware of. But I'm very much from Chorley, Google Patchway opposite Strawberry Fields in Astley Village, and I just wanted to start getting involved in Digital Lancashire. It's almost, and these sessions is almost just to give a little bit back to the community. My background is currently heading up e-commerce within Molson Coors, so Ocado, Amazon, what classes pure play retailers, effectively selling beer and cider online. And then prior to that, spent most of my career at Coca-Cola. I'm conscious that's not a Chorley-based business, but I spent about 5 or 6 years there in digital marketing, and prior to that, various sort of sales roles. So again, what I just thought could add to these sorts of sessions is just almost like the lens and the view for more corporate businesses and big businesses as well, because I'm conscious that a lot of these sessions that I've been on, people are pitching or trying to get involved. So it's basically just to give a view from the other side of the fence, so to speak. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions, just feel free to reach out. But for me, what I'm hoping to get out of this is just, again, just broaden knowledge, because I found these sessions really useful. And I actually found the webinar that was done a few months ago, the one on the dark web, nothing work related at all, but absolutely one of the best webinars I've ever attended, and absolutely fascinating. So yeah, that's me.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks for that endorsement. I'm not sure we can live up to that today, but we'll do our best. And finally, Mark, not last but not least, Mark Chamberlain, who joins us from OpenReach. Mark's the partnership manager there. I still think that's the full panel. We were expecting Andy Alston. I don't think he's made it as yet. So, but Mark, sorry, if you could just tell us a bit about your role, please, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, so much like Al, I'm grew up in Chorley, still live in Chorley, always lived in Chorley, and work for a national company. So, so OpenReach, whilst being a national company, also a local company. We work to maintain and also build fibre broadband networks throughout the UK. I've been part of the business for getting on 24, 25 years now. Always, say, lived and worked in Chorley. Keen to, as Al had said, give a view from the corporate side of the fence. I've worked with SMEs across Lancashire previously in roles that I've completed, as well as locally in Chorley as well. So yeah, keen to give a little bit, give it back, and also give that corporate perspective as well.
Great, thanks very much, Mark. And I believe Andy, welcome. Andy's now joined us. So Andy is head of school IT at Runshaw College, which is a very active sixth form college. Is that right, Andy? I think in and around Chorley area.
We have an adult campus as well.
Yeah. So Andy, if you just want to briefly tell us, everyone just had a quick introduction, just a few points about what you do as head of school, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been at the college now I'm just into my 6th year, and my role really encompasses the curriculum side, and just looking at what potential courses we can put together, with a strong look at what services the local need in terms of employment. And a strong look at the moment in terms of the shortage skills that are out there, what courses we can actually put in place to service local employers in trying to fill some of those gaps where we can. In terms of what I'm looking for to get out of this is obviously we have a number of links out there, and I'm looking to just take advantage of any more links we can develop and look at employability options for our students, anything we can link back into the design of the curriculum in terms of what we're putting in place, and just to sort of get a broader view of what is actually happening outside of education in terms of digital.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Super. Well, a fantastic panel. So let's crack on, and that's a series of questions here. I will just mention the manifesto that we've recently put out there, and I think most people have received that as part of the registration. So please have a read of it. It's not a finished piece in terms of it's iterative, and we think the feedback we get from today and from the whole of this this festival will help us shape that even further. So it's very much a listening type exercise for us. But first question, if I could, probably be easy if I go to Justin and Phil and ask you both together as you sat there. But really, I mean, the obvious question is, in the last 6 months, how's it been for you? I think, Phil, you've hinted at a bit at that, for your organisation, and I suppose for the digital sector specifically in Chorley. If perhaps, Justin, I could start with you on that one, please.
Yeah, I mean, the last 6 months have been incredibly tough. There was a 2-day period in March when lockdown happened, where I lost probably close to £150,000 in contracts, literally within 2 days. As a solo consultant with no staff, as you can imagine, that's a lot of work. That's the next 18 months of my sort of business career gone. Now, I was fortunate in that I have sort of multiple income streams, so I work for a few agencies. I do a lot in the crisis communication space, so that work picked up. As you can imagine, it was an incredibly busy month. But then all the big brands that we work for realised this was going to go on for longer than a month, so they took it all back in-house. And it's been a struggle ever since. The one big bonus is that it's given me time to develop a new business idea that I've had in the back of my head for 3 or 4 years. So it was actually when the Digital Hub reopened, I was sort of banging down the doors on the first day because I've been trapped at home with the family for 3 months and it was difficult to do anything. So just to keep myself busy, I started developing this business idea, and now it's turning into a business. It's now turning into my main focus. The consultancy work is picking up. It's still slow. People still don't want to commit long term. But yeah, I think it's been tough, but there's opportunities that have come out of it.
Okay, great. Okay, and I probably that mirrors probably experience of a lot of businesses and individuals who are trying to overcome some of the issues. Phil, obviously a slightly different scenario for yourself, but you know, I mean, if you want to just tell us a bit more as well about Strawberry Fields itself, because it is a technical hub and we're quite heavily into co-working spaces in Digital Lancashire because we like to support those as centres where people obviously can come and meet in normal circumstances. But just tell us, give us a flavour for that, please, if you would.
Yeah, so if we go back to March, seems like a good starting point, doesn't it, for some of these discussions? You'll remember this well, Duncan. You were here. We had the awards night for the competition that we ran. You were one of the judges on that, and we were literally starting then to do the elbow handshakes. We weren't touching each other or shaking hands or having hugs and those kind of things. And we just come to the end of that process of looking for new businesses, giving them a platform to get started. A desk here, a phone here, support through the program, and then the week after we were all isolating and working remotely. So it was a very strange time. So Strawberry Fields had opened in October last year. We got to March. We were about 60% capacity in the offices of digital and creative businesses coming in, and starting to get people to come in on the hot desks, such as Justin. And then we had to close. So we've had a stunted start. What I will say is that we haven't lost many businesses from the hub. We had a couple who were moving out before that happened. And we've had a lot more move in since we reopened. So it's actually quite positive. From a business support perspective, the digital creative program that I run from here covers the whole of Lancashire, not just Chorley. So I've got a picture of what's going on further afield from here as well. But it's been quite buoyant. I've been quite surprised by the ability to have businesses approach us or be referred in and actually onboarding new clients. We've had a number of businesses that have grown exponentially during this situation. They've been in the Amazon fulfillment marketplace. They've been in online, getting people online, basically, all sorts of things like that. They've grown, they've been taking staff on. Unfortunately, on the flip side, we've had tech businesses who've been delivering services to the hospitality and the events industry that unfortunately have gone the other way. But again, on the plus side, some businesses have flipped, have pivoted, have diversified, and they've approached us and said, are we now digital? What we need to do, we need to build an online platform, we need to build an app, we need to do something different. Can you help us with that? So we've been able to help with that. So that's actually quite a buoyant side of the support industry that we're seeing.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, that's a great summary. Thanks for that. And I think that kind of probably reflects in a kind of a micro economy there in lots of other parts of the county. Similar kind of situation. It kind of depends what you're involved in when the pandemic hit, as to how well you were then able to adapt or how it affected your customer base. But thanks very much indeed. Al, can I ask you the same question, please? Very interested, obviously, because of the size of the organisation you work for. How's it impacted? And I think probably less Chorley for you, but just broadly, without too much detail, but you just give some of a summary on that would be great, please.
Yeah, broadly, very much two halves. Whereas as a company that brews beer, the impact on the hospitality and the pub trade, the on-trade, has been massive, and that's resulted in a massive volume and profit loss, to be brutally honest. What has happened, though, from an e-commerce perspective, is sales have literally been at Christmas Day levels consistently for probably about 4 or 5 months. And what we're finding now is a lot of the major retailers have gone from online sales representing 7-8% of their business tops to now around 20, if not higher. And what we found from a company point of view is this huge focus now on e-commerce and digital capability. And I think the industry has probably changed more in 6 months than in 6 years. And there's a massive desire now to sort of upskill. And I'm finding that not just in company I work for, but speaking to other companies and suppliers, etc. So I think there's this huge rush now to get digital capability. I actually think though Chorley's in a good position, because I think one of the good things that has come out of all this is the acceptance now of remote working, which is a lot more embedded, and especially so from a sales point of view, actually to customers. Traditionally in the past, face-to-face meetings like JVP negotiations, price increase negotiations, and now actually all done remotely, and there's that acceptance of that. So I think what we're going to find is this less London and Manchester centric focus on where to work, and now people wanting to come out into areas like we have in Chorley, which has got a fantastic transport links, amazing scenery, people, etc. So I think as a town we're in a good place. I think there's changes now in a lot of big FMCG, or what they call CPG, consumer product goods. I think there's going to be a sea change now in terms of that focus on e-commerce and digital. And I think also as a digital industry, I think we almost now have to demystify it as well. I think there's far too much smoke and mirrors and complexity for complexity's sake, and a rush sometimes to do something that's new and shiny, whereas actually just making sure it's fit for purpose is a battle.
Yeah, and I think, really, really fascinating. And I think, I think we've found that within Digital Lancashire, that now the reboot is kind of obviously deliberate, but it's come at such a critical time because of that changing situation that you've talked about there. And I think, more people are going to be at home trying to decide how they're going to use their time at home. And again, I was talking just a bit earlier, we had a very good session yesterday about that, people working from home, maybe wanting to have the flexibility, but not always wanting to, having experienced it for 6 months, then stay at home for the full week. We want to get away from the family for a few minutes a week, and that kind of, so, there's a complete change. And I think that's why it's so important that we get everybody's kind of views and insights today. Just really, really fascinating. Mark, you're waiting patiently there. I just want to come on to you, please, if I may, and just again, similar sort of question to you, please.
Sure. So again, as it has been for most people, it's kind of a balance act, if you will. So in terms of the positives, we've been able to carry on with network build activity. Hugely important for us at the moment as we go into as we continue to build an ultra fast network across the UK. So by and large, all of that has been absolutely fine. I guess we've also seen significant demand for our services, both in terms of the existing network, with people working from home, working on a remote basis. We've had the existing network in place and it hasn't fallen over, which again is really positive. People have been able to safely work from home, so that's been a positive as well. In terms of the negatives that we've seen, the ability to enter people's premises was restricted to us for some time because of COVID, obviously. So that meant that even though there was demand for some services, where it required an engineer to go into a premise, we weren't able to do that in some cases. So that was a challenge for us over the period of the lockdown. I think also a bit of a frustration because we were building full fibre network, and then for that period, people weren't able to connect to it. So that again was a frustration and a bit of a problem for us during that period, and may again be in the future, depending on what happens next. I guess the other side of what we've seen is in terms of business premises, because of the change in the way that people have worked over the course of the last 6 months. And demand for our Ethernet, our business grade services has dropped. You know, people haven't been working in new business offices and locations to the same degree as they were prior to COVID-19. So we've seen a slackening in terms of demand for those types of products. So much like everybody else, you know, a double-edged sword for us. I think, you know, positives around the build of fibre broadband, certainly in demand, and the stability of the network that we've got, but a certain restriction in terms of demand for some of our services on the flip side.
Fantastic, great, thank you very much. And Andy, obviously, in a very different sector, and you know, obviously, we've all perhaps got family and kids and know how that works. So we've all got members of family in education. But go on, just give us a summary, really, of what you've had to go through, because it must be quite a challenge, I would think.
Yeah, I think obviously being a digital subject, and there are others, including media and, you know, some of the graphic design, they make use of technology anyway. So you would think that something like that would be easy to pick up and move to an online situation, and potentially it causes more problems. Some of the issues that we did encounter was obviously probably relating to the sort of digital and social divide, and those students potentially didn't have access to resources. And I think if we think about the kind of courses we're running that are hardware and software reliant, and students not just being able to get access to that, whether they don't have licenses for particular applications, or we're running packages that we can fund licenses for, but their laptops just won't run the applications. They just don't have the technology that works for them. And then I think you've got a slightly different twist on that with, you know, we talk about that we've all been in that situation, working at home, and potentially with our children working at home as well. We're not just talking about students having access to a computer, we're talking about whole households having multiple access to multiple devices so that everybody can work in harmony. And having had to do that for 6 months myself, it doesn't look much like harmony, does it, working at home when there's 3 kids all wanting to use the computers, and there's 2 between sort of 2 working adults and 3 kids in the same house. So there's been a lot of that, and a lot of change for students about how they go about their learning, and even from the time of day. You know, say unfortunately for students, then parents tend to take priority over use of the computer, and 9 to 5 it's parents, and then students tend to try and pick up in and around that when resources become available. So that was kind of the one big thing that stood out to me, was not necessarily just is there one laptop or PC in the house, but have you got multiple that services everyone? We do have students who have brothers and sisters in college as well, so there's 2 or 3 of them looking to use it at the same time to do the college work. So I think that caused some issues for a number of students in trying to get that work-life balance for themselves, and the times a day that they found working. So I mean, the knock-on effect for us as education, if we're going to run a live lesson, what time of the day do we run that live lesson to make sure everybody's accessible? It looks different for a teacher, doesn't it, trying to sit down and teach a lesson at 10 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night when they have their own families and their own kids running around. That was something real out to me.
I think it's very interesting, because I've got kind of student kids as well, and they've gone away to university, and they're supposed to be having lectures online. But you know, I think it's the motivation elements of there. I know already my daughter's trying to get back, though she's not allowed to.
Yeah.
So I keep on going to argue. But it's the motivational aspect of it and self sort of time management, really, which is really testing that, I think. So in lots of ways
as well, don't you? Putting people's different learning styles and what that looks like, and students come to college, they want a face-to-face experience, and then all of a sudden they're put into this online experience, and even now a number of people are still not comfortable with turning a camera on in different meetings and different, you know, we still have that, and trying to make the best of what we have to support those students. It is interesting. It does change the dynamic of a classroom, and affects how people learn. 100%. And I think something to pick on that somebody mentioned earlier was about everything's new and shiny, and it doesn't always mean it's the right thing to do. During that period of online learning, the amount of new resources and platforms that became available for teachers and students to use, it's not always a help. Sometimes it's a hindrance. Sometimes the familiarity in using processes and techniques that you've always used in the classroom is the best thing to stick with, and just tweak them. We are very much in that process now of we're embracing technology within the classroom that we wouldn't have normally used, particularly in IT. We're gearing up a lot around the use of Teams and the associated apps that we can use with notebooks. So if we get back to that situation where we find students working from home, we pick up what we do in a class and we just put it at home in the office or the bedroom, wherever the computer is, and the daily experience of what they see on screen, the applications they use and the process they use, it looks the same.
Sure.
And we try and give that familiarity. So that's kind of our strategy at the moment, in the direction we're going, is trying to breed familiarity.
Oh, great. But really interesting. Thanks, Andy. And I think it's just interesting to hear. We all experience it from one side, but hear it directly from someone like yourself involved in it is brilliant. I'm going to just kind of change tack slightly, and then rather than having your own kind of roles and heads on it, take it to a Chorley level now, if I can, because this is Digital Chorley. And I really want to ask it, and there are obviously some issues that you've raised as positives and negatives around the whole thing. But I mean, if you had your sort of magic wand, your digital magic wand for, if you can think about Chorley, and I'm going to throw this open to the floor. I'm not going to ask individually, so kind of just put your hand up and then dive in, and I'll try and referee that. But you know, what would you do? What would be your, you know, in summary, what would be your solutions, if you like, to some of the issues that have been on digital side, particularly?
Can I go, Duncan?
Yeah, of course, go.
Well, for me, obviously, I come from a business support point of view, and that's what I do in Chorley and throughout Lancashire. We've had businesses crying out for digital skills training, teaching them, giving them the tools to actually pivot, change, diversify their business has been key. We've got market traders here who are now online, selling goods online and providing deliveries, which was something that they wouldn't have even considered pre the pandemic. So it's a continuation of that for us. It's making people aware of what's available to them. There's lots of free stuff out there as well as paid stuff, pointing them in the direction of it and getting them to learn and use those tools. So there's been a crash course for quite a few business owners in Chorley. Some of them have embraced it. I'll just give an example. We've got a chocolate shop here called Chocobella. The owner had bought in lots of lovely Easter eggs at the start of the pandemic, ready for the Easter season, and then had to close her shop. Very quickly built a Shopify shop herself, sold through lots and lots of the stock, but still had, you know, some serious amount of product left on the shelf, and used initiative, and then went out and did an auction. And actually, the auction stuff was selling at more than face value. So, you know, using the digital skills that they've learnt, pivoting their businesses, making those changes, that needs to continue, because what we've got isn't going away anytime soon. And if people don't do that, they're really going to struggle in their businesses.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody else? Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I'd just build on that. I think it's an awareness piece as well, just to let the local community know what's available. And there is so much free resources and tools around. I think it's just finding a way to surface that up. And then also, I think, given everything that's happened, I think a facility like Strawberry Fields, I think is going to be in huge demand, because I think you'll start seeing a lot of companies divesting their headquarters and going to fully remote working. And I think given the challenges that people have, they're not set up for that, they've not got dedicated spaces, I think there's going to be a demand for more social facilities where people can literally just drop in and work and have all the facilities and keep that work-life balance a little bit more separate and better as well.
Yeah, a really good point, I think, and I'm sure Phil would agree with you on that. So,
can I add to it, Duncan? Just,
yeah, cool. Yeah.
You mentioned Strawberry Fields specifically. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep talking about it because it's in my blood. But what we've done, we ERDF funded, European funded, and we wrote to them during the pandemic, during lockdown, and asked for a change of use of the building. They've now allowed us to let non-digital and creative businesses in through the doors. So anybody can rock up and use a hot desk or a pod here, and you can pay by the day. It's something we couldn't do before. So we've been able to flip the usage of the building, and we're using it as business recovery space. You mentioned there about people's change in the way that they're working. Still want to get out of the house. You mentioned it, didn't you, Justin? Get away from the family for, even if it's just 1 or 2 days a week. We now have that flexibility here. So yeah, absolutely. And the demand is high for that.
Anybody else got any views on that? I say it's the magic wand, really. I'm just trying to find out, particularly Chorley, as an area. I mean, geographically, was it 120 odd thousand population? I think, perfectly situated logistically on motorways. I think the 3 M6, M61, and M65 all run through, Chorley. And obviously there's a tendency, I'm sure, people commute either up towards Preston, Lancaster, or down towards Manchester. So it's a perfect location, really, in that sense. But for Chorley, how does that, if you like, how does that support look going forward? Because is it going to change? And I'll probably preclude Phil from this one, because I'm sure he could tell us, go on and on about that in terms of support. But other people, I mean, around your businesses, your organisations, how do they look at that kind of support? Maybe for your staff, but also for customers, obviously, as well. How does that work? And again, I'll ask Mark that one, please. Mark, would you?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So I think from our perspective going forward, and what we're doing as a business, we're as I've already said, I'm sure a couple of times, we're about building networks. And at the moment, we've started building ultra-fast fibre in Eccleston, so the Eccleston part of Chorley. If you're the Eccleston exchange area, we've started building ultra-fast fibre broadband there. Equally, we're due to start very soon in Brinscall, and we've just announced the Chorley exchange area is going to be benefiting from ultra-fast fibre broadband in the future too. So we expect to start building that within the next 12 to 18 months. So whilst the network that we've got at the moment is fine and acts as an enabler for businesses and also for people to work from home, we know that isn't going to be good enough for people today, and also in the future, where you've got multiple people at home working that Andy described earlier. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing to invest in the UK overall, but that's specifically what's going on in Chorley and is starting now. So we'll cover as many of those premises as is commercially viable, so that people can have that option to upgrade their services should they need it kind of tomorrow, and in the future, and in some cases today, as we complete the build, starting in Eccleston, as I say, and then moving on to Brinscall and then later Chorley. So that's what we're doing. We're acting as an enabler to help those businesses that are moving towards digital, away from the super fast technology that we've got today, which is fine for most, towards ultra fast tomorrow.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Duncan.
Yeah, Justin, go on.
It's a slightly different point, but it's when I think about a local region, or like a hyper local region like Chorley, and the challenges it's faced through COVID, you know, I look at the collaboration, because when all this started, you know, people started talking about Zoom and all these tools that no one had ever heard of. You know, the tools me and people like me have been using for years. You know, I've run my business from anywhere, hotel rooms, on trains, wherever I happen to be. As long as I've got a phone or a laptop, I can talk to my clients in Europe. I've got a few clients in the Middle East, all over the place. So when I hear Runshaw College and the challenges you've been facing, you know, there's all these technologies being thrown at you. There's probably people in businesses in the region who know these technologies inside and out. And I don't know how much support you got at Runshaw externally, but it seems like a good idea to be able to reach out to somebody like Digital Lancashire and ask for a bit of expert support from a local business. So I think moving forward, something I'd like to see is greater collaboration between the people that know these technologies and the people that are new to them.
Yeah, very, very good point. And I think it kind of right at the heart of what we try to do as an organisation, Digital Lancashire, is kind of that educational piece, if you like, which, you know, we're obviously working across six clusters across Lancashire, but, you know, often is not showcasing or picking out very good ambassadors or examples of that are obviously a very powerful way of trying to communicate that. And I think, you know, we're currently doing that kind of thing around a prospectus that we want to develop as well, not only for Lancashire, for Chorley, but for Lancashire, and to then push that out. Not a lot of things happen without money, unfortunately. It's just the world, you know. And the more investment and focus we can get on Lancashire, the better. So we really do need to shout. We sometimes, I mean, talking to Lancaster this morning, for example, who are very active. A lot of people wanted to do a lot of things there. Their self-perception was that they weren't actually all that good at it. I mean, you know, in terms of activity levels and things like the university being there, they're actually incredibly well positioned to actually drive things forward. And I hope that maybe that's something that they could look to do as well. Has anybody else got any comments on that kind of particular area, you know, around kind of fixing that for Chorley? And the next thing I want to go on to talk about is kind of just the examples in Chorley that, you know, kind of what are the key strengths, if you like, about Chorley itself. And again, if you can make that digital. And I just put a slight caveat on that. Somebody said earlier in one of the discussions, you know, digital's not a thing, it's what you do with it type thing. And I think that's a very, very, very valid point, because everybody gets so turned inside out about what digital actually means, trying to define it, and am I digital and am I not? But it's kind of that thing, you know. So really, what are the strengths in Chorley as a potential cluster? Again, I'll throw that open. Maybe Andy, you're looking a bit pensive there. Can I throw that one on you? You're just muted at the moment.
I just get my head around the question, and I just link back to the earlier point about what is digital and what is not. And it sounds like a conversation we have with a lot of our students. I mean, we introduced a T-level qualification this year that has an extensive sort of workplace involved in it. And I think students, it equates to about 45 days of work placement they have to do. And it is an extensive work placement. It's not your typical sort of work experience that some of us might have done where we sit in the back corner and make somebody a cup of tea. It's got to be digitally related. And this is one of the things that students then start worrying about is where can they get a digital placement? And I think nationally, getting a digital placement is the hardest work placement to sort of to find and to sustain for 45 days. And it's the conversation we have with our students that everyone's digital. No longer is every business is digital. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have with students and making them understand that it doesn't matter where you go. You don't have to go to the high-tech organization and business to do a digital role. You can have a digital role in any organization, in any business. And so that's what I was just thinking about. Hence the face I was pulling.
Yeah.
It's a common conversation that we have with students. And what does a digital role look like? And a digital role can look like anything. essentially.
Yeah.
I'd echo that. Also, Duncan.
Yeah, go on, Al. Go on. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I echo that totally. I think we probably need to almost have like a definition of what digital is. And I think there's a danger sometimes that you can go 100% digital, whereas actually it can just be part, and it's got to be an enabler of something else as well. It can't be just digital in its own right. But I have to say, and the point you mentioned before about Chorley's strengths, I have to admit, after working in London and sort of Manchester quite a bit, I'm always surprised at the amount of people that you bump into that have a connection or are from or live in Chorley. And I think there's a huge hotbed of talent and across a wide variety of sectors, and a lot of very senior people in organisations within Chorley. We must surely over-index in terms of the digital stakeholders that are around, and I think there's just a huge opportunity for us almost to connect the two. So by using something like Digital Lancashire, is that conduit of sort of being able to have the expertise from various different business sectors, but then I'm sure a lot of those people as well would want to help the likes of Unshaw College and education sectors as well.
Yeah, well, really valid points, and I think it's very true, you know, and again, it's learning and working out how to best promote that for Chorley. I mean, we've got things like Choose Chorley, which I think, Phil, you know, you perhaps just tell us a bit about that, but it's that kind of thing of promoting. It was a very good event. Sorry, just going to say, Phil, it was a very good event, wasn't there, when you launched Strawberry Fields, when you had about 200 businesses, I think, was it 200 people?
We were fretting that day because we were only allowed 200 people on the top floor for fire regulations, and there was 270 booked on, but we managed to sort that out. So one of those things, the challenge is, if we go to the challenge and then look at the things that we might be able to do to overcome those, that we lose talent from the area. Al's dead right in saying that there's loads of high-flying people in positions in multinational organisations that choose to live in Chorley because it's a nice place to live. We're improving the facilities here all the time. The town centre, just before lockdown, we opened the new Market Walk extension, introduced, you know, the cinema, the golf, new restaurants, there's new shops coming. So we're trying to make it a nicer place to live. And that's been embraced by people who seem to be, you know, at the top of their game. But we're losing some of the younger people and the younger talent after they've been to university or to college, to the bright lights of Manchester and Leeds, Liverpool, to a lesser extent to Preston. That's okay, they're still in central Lancashire. So what we've got to try and do is get them to stay here and spend the money here. So we've changed the town centre, there's more developments taking place. We've built Strawberry Fields, giving people a place to come and work. So there's reason to be here as well. You know, there's a facility that is usable and tangible now. We've wrapped around the support with that. Myself and my team, we are here to help businesses grow. We're looking to create jobs. We're looking to create new products to not just to the firm, but to the market. Tap into grant money that's available and all those things. And what we're noticing now is that it's not just businesses that we've classed as digital. They've realised that they need to embrace it and they become digital. The point that you were making, all businesses are. There are some that aren't. I can vouch for that, but 90% probably are. So the challenge is keeping people here and attracting people here. So there's the other side of that, the inward investment. So as a council, I'll put my council hat on now. We have a whole range of grants. We've got grants for businesses who are moving within Chorley. If they want to move in here or to one of the other properties that are here, we can help with that. But we've got the Choose Chorley brand, the inward investment grant, where, you know, we've got funding to help businesses get their premises open, capital grants for equipment, machinery, building work, that kind of stuff. So there is an opportunity here. We're doing our very best to fly the flag. you know, it's a nice place to live. It's also a nice place to work now. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay. Anybody else on that one? Anybody want to say anything now? I've just got another question that I'd like to pose to you, really, just in terms of making the economy stronger digitally, but also I need to ask the question, and so part of why we've put this whole event on is just to find a bit more about Digital Lancashire, so we can be self-indulgent there just for a few minutes and ask that question. You know, Digital Lancashire is perceived in different ways in different parts of Lancashire. I think certainly when I started the role, there was some quite pointed conversations about, you know, what we should be doing and how we could do it. So I'm really kind of, we're all thick-skinned, and we've had this conversation, to be fair, with every group that we talk to, and will do in the next couple of days. So Digital Lancashire, you know, what can we do, you know, to actually help to achieve some of these objectives around digital, to keep businesses informed? And because one of our challenges, I have to say, is that there's lots of organisations trying to do very similar things with different pots of money, and a digital union, which is one of our events, is something we're really keen to try and get in place. So and again, I'll throw that open, really. Anybody kind of got any views on that?
I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer, Duncan. I've got quite a lot of views on it, but I think first and foremost, it comes down to visibility. It comes down to Digital Lancashire having a bigger profile within the industry. And again, when I say the industry, I'm probably talking about what we would call the core digital industry. So that's your digital agencies, that's your e-commerce agencies, e-commerce brands, right down to the individual level of job titles. You know, key people within businesses, whether they're huge corporates, whether they're smaller firms. It's that network. Because I fully admit, you know, I didn't know much about Digital Lancashire at all until I moved here. My focus has always been London and Manchester. That's where I've worked. I've moved between the two. You know, I started an event which was for the social media industry. I started that in Manchester, even though I lived down the road in Crosston. I never thought I'll do one in Preston, I'll do one in Burnley, I'll do my event Social MCR. I never thought I'll do a Social Lancashire. Now that's probably one because my network isn't here, but I think it's also because I didn't see it as the place to host it. I didn't see that it had the audience or maybe the potential. So I think Digital Lancashire being more visible, being a bit more high profile, would give someone like me someone to go to, and it would just raise that awareness about the regions.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think all very, very valid points. So anybody else got some views or insights on that in terms of Digital Lancashire? I mean, if you honestly don't know too much about us, then that's fine also, but I think it's just trying to get a measure really of perceptions and where you think we're up to as an organisation, and indeed what we can do. I think Justin's just hinted at that in terms of the events. So you know, it's what we're trying to do with that is get over that a general sort of standard of numbers at events has been kind of up to 20-25 people, and obviously we'd like 100 people at events. So it's trying to spread that word really, and be relevant. So again, you know, so similarly with education, Andy, I think just in terms of, you know, what makes the Runshaw student attractive from Chorley, you know, as an asset, as opposed to people looking elsewhere. How do you build that reputation maybe for producing students who are rounded and have the skill sets, you know? So I think it's making those assets, I can call students that, you know, attractive.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, from a college point of view, the curriculum aspect is only this much of the student's life, and there's such a wide and varied sort of offer for enrichment activities and an opportunity to develop the individual and not just the academic sort of studies. And I think that's probably one of the things that the college does do, probably, and I'm always going to be biased, but better than most out there, to be honest. And it is that that offer of the extra, whether it be academies, whether it be just pushing students to go that one step further. I mean, we have such a high number of students applying for prestigious universities and being accepted at Oxford and Cambridge. And I think we push students, I was going to say to be the best. It very much sounded like an army promotion, that then. It wasn't meant to be.
Promote away.
Yeah, it's about the student achieving their potential. I think that's something that we're really big on at the college. Grades aren't just everything. They're a big stepping stone for students to move forward, but it very much is about developing the whole person, giving them the employability skills that they need, giving them confidence. And I would love the opportunity to invite people in to come and have a look at some of the wider stuff that we do in terms of trying to develop the individual. There's way more than I could probably just summarize now, but if that was something that we could look at moving forward, there's colleagues of mine who would certainly sit down and give you chapter and verse on all of the extra sort of stuff that we do put in place to support our students in their development.
Well, I think, fantastic. And I think, that's something that we should look at after this event, but a youth advisory sort of committee is something that Tom's just messaged as well. That kind of thing. We need a centre for it. And I'm a big believer, however digital we are, to have a physical, point where people can gravitate towards and seek information is always a big plus. So maybe that's something we should have a chat to you about, after this event. But yeah, really, really good insight. Again, Mark, come to you, just in terms of Digital Lancashire. I mean, we've had meetings and we've discussed things, but how can we better collaborate with you, I guess, is the question, in terms of trying to make life for Chorley citizens, advanced, and how do we keep in that upper echelon all the time, which is where we'd like to be as Chorley.
Yeah, I think it's all about awareness, isn't it, and all about using the skills that are available across Lancashire to help inspire those businesses that are there, and also using the tools that are out there and available for them today. I guess a lot of those businesses that are on the journey that Phil described previously, they need some form of inspiration to get there. And I guess working with businesses, however big or small they are, to help inspire those businesses would certainly, those kind of businesses that are taking to digital for the first time could certainly help those businesses develop the confidence that they need to move forward in what is for them the brave new digital level.
Okay, that's really interesting as well. And I think the other thing that we are, off the back of the reboot looking for is to try and develop clusters or to have a more consistent presence, but also ambassadors as well, in terms of individuals or businesses that can kind of fly the flag. I think you probably all fit in that category, so I'm kind of preaching to the converted in that sense. But it is to find those businesses out in Chorley, who have had that huge success, and we're more than happy, to promote that through to DCMS or up into Lancashire County Council itself. And they often are very hungry, even DIT are hungry to get their hands on really good sort of sound bites, things about organisations that have done incredibly well, whether it be external investment or a really brilliant, groundbreaking idea in technology, and all of those things. But okay, I mean, anybody else got any other kind of comments on that? I mean, I'll move on from there, because I say it was slightly self-indulgent around Digital Lancashire, but we do need to gain some insights out of it. But any other comments? No.
Just one final point, really quick. I mean, it goes back to the previous point, but also, thinking about the Runture example again, it's Digital Lancashire as that facilitator, whichever way. So if a business has got an opportunity to bring a young person in for work placements or whatever the opportunity is, Digital Lancashire are the go-to people. Similarly, from the educator's point of view, if they need some assistance finding placements for students, finding people to come in and advise on the curriculum, it would be much easier for them if they go straight to you as one single body, rather than doing the legwork themselves, I suppose.
Yep. Take that on board. And I think the other thing that perhaps some people don't know, we're on the Lancashire Skills, Digital Skills Board as well. We do sit on that, a couple of us, on a monthly basis. And there's been a Team Tech Challenge actually yesterday, which was they're a national organisation, but it sort of came to Lancashire trying to promote that. Kerry Harrison, you probably are all aware, is very, very active on that front and very keen to try and collaborate and engage as many as possible. And indeed, Jeremy Coates, our Vice Chairman, is very big on pathways, making sure that students and youngsters and even return to works, whether it's be mums or even the older age group who retired and want to do something different again, then they're all kind of have availability to those resources, know where to go. And I think that's the key thing, there's some results out of that. So I do think that one of the things we'll be setting ourselves is kind of KPIs, for want of a better phrase, going forward over the next 6 months as we come out of lockdown to try and get involved in that. And I think we'd like you all to try and get involved in that in some way, even if it's just on an opinion basis or as a reference point to come back and check with you. So that would be really interesting. I'm just looking at time and we're getting on towards kind of the hour mark. And I just, perhaps we should, at this stage, Joe, just kind of open up to we've got Lisa. Thanks for coming, Lisa. You'll see you've been at a lot of the events. Gemma and Pete, and Design Station. I'm not sure who that is, but if you, any of you got any comments or thoughts on anything that we've discussed, be really interested to hear them. Over to you. Tom, yeah, you.
I said I was going to take a back seat and be really quiet and not say a word. I lied, so apologies, everyone. I'm just curious. There's a discussion, and we've already touched on this around what Chorley is particularly good at, and perhaps where its skills lie. But as someone who works outside of Digital Lancashire, someone who works with brand and identity, and as someone who lives in Preston, I wonder what is the Chorley identity? So I think this is really important. So, for example, the Lancaster cluster discussion this morning, a lot of people referenced the heritage, and they felt that Lancaster was perhaps a centre for digital excellence. When we had the Reboot Digital Burnley session, discussion was very much around, well, our perhaps identity is in manufacturing and traditional services businesses. So if we were to think of Chorley in that context, in a sense of identity, what is that identity, and does it translate to its digital ambition?
There's a question, Tom. I've got some notes here. I've got some pieces that were taken from Chorley's economic strategy. So let's see if this kind of sums it up for you. Chorley has many of the key components of economic success: a premier location at the heart of the Northwest motorway network, market catchments of Manchester, Liverpool and Preston, a highly skilled workforce, top performing schools, glorious countryside, high quality of life, and a strong economic structure orientated towards growth. The prognosis going forward is very bright. Chorley offers considerable economic growth potential and can make an effective contribution to sub-regional, regional and national. Okay, we'll not go any further with that. What we've got though is a diverse economy, a wide range of business sectors. That does include digital and creative. It also includes advanced engineering, growing in food and drink, even though the hospitality industry is hit, that is growing here as well, but also business and professional services. There's been a move away in the last 10 years from this nice market town, which is probably what we know it as, the Chorley Flower Show and those kind of things. They're still really strong and really prominent. Astley Hall's going under refurbishment. It's also, known as a nice venue to come to. But it has been that classic Lancashire market town has been the outside perception of it, and it's gradually changing. But we're not sort of tarred with that, but we are progressing away from that.
I was just going to add to that. Do you think that the label or the perception of market town is a bad thing? Is that something you think is a bit of a shackle when it comes to progressing the digital agenda?
Oh, it's a plus, because if you go out from work from Strawberry Fields at lunchtime and go into the markets in the town centre, it's a nice place to be. It's very vibrant. There's lots to do, you know, street food and all those kind of things under normal circumstances, you know, when we get back to some kind of normal, new normal. So it's not a bad thing. It's as well as, not instead of.
Yeah, it just resonated when you mentioned earlier when you talked about Chocobella and the you know, very much if you're thinking about the market town, thinking of a good market stall, and someone who's able to then translate that to using their innovation and using the digital tools at hand. I thought it was quite a good, powerful story, a good example. Like if we were to surmise Chorley, if Chorley were this market town, I think Choco is a really good example of a Chorley stalwart, as it were, being able to take that and translate digital. But
there's other stories. That's a key one.
Yeah.
You know, with my role, I'm speaking to these businesses on a daily basis, and these are some of the examples that you know are thrown at me. So yeah, there's other positives here. Obviously, you know, we're very good at building houses in Chorley, but we do have a high density of businesses to people. So I think it's 37 per 10,000 residents. So there is a lot of business activity here, and a lot of that is digitally based. So we've got old and new side by side. You know, it's nice to see that in buildings, isn't it? You know, sometimes where you blend an old building and add some nice new steel and glass to it.
Where's this going?
Where's it going, Justin? It's the same here with the old and the new. The old industry of Chorley can still add value to the changes that are being made to the infrastructure here. I'm going to shut up now. It's the town where I live, it's the town where I work, and it's the one that I support. So I'm a great big advocate for Chorley.
And this might sound a little controversial, but in a way, does it need an identity? Because if you have an identity, you can almost pigeonhole or work to that. I think one of the strengths of Chorley is it's quite multifaceted. You know, a bit like you say with the old and the new. You know, the fact that we are a market town, but then also there's some pretty state-of-the-art industry and technology in the area as well. And I think something like this, I see as being like a facilitator, or I mentioned conduit before, just to help connect people and businesses more, and perhaps be more of a knowledge base.
I was going to say that a little bit when it comes to Lancashire as a whole, when it comes to all of its identities. We were doing it yesterday. That's classed as, you know, historically manufacturing. Lancaster's always felt very segregated from the rest of Lancashire. And actually, are we making it worse by making those segregations? And actually, somebody from Burnley also mentioned that they feel they don't network with anybody else other than Burnley. I feel like that's the same with Lancaster. And actually, is there something to be done with? I know people have tried to do it, and I know it's not a new problem at all, but actually trying to cross those borders as businesses and try and imagine that they don't exist and we are just one Lancashire. Because actually, I don't think, although there are parts of Lancashire that specialise in certain areas, Lancashire, actually, each town and city is not actually that different. We've got a lot of digital businesses in each area, whether that's Chorley, Burnley, Lancaster. We've got a lot of engineering companies in each of those areas. Actually, the makeup's very similar. And actually, is there something to be done to cross those barriers a little bit?
Some really good points there, Gemma. Thank you. What I would say with that is I completely agree that the sense of identity, it's an age-old discussion as far as Lancashire goes. You know, we are very parochial. We benefit from or suffer from, pick your word, whichever, but we are polycentric. We have multiple identities, and we should be proud of each of those. And whether or not by extolling those and promoting those, it makes it worse. But I'm just going to pop a link in the chat. It's the link to the current bid for the capital of culture, where Lancashire are putting in for 2025. And I've been helping the team, working with some of the sort of behind the scenes to work on what that looks like. And the team, Debbie Lander, Ben Blackman, and those people have done some incredible work on trying to reimagine Lancashire as a city, as this one place that isn't all about parochialism. It's more about our digital capabilities, regardless of where that is. So, what I would urge people is do have a look and explore, and if it resonates, get behind the bid, because whether, and I do hope it's successful and goes to the next stage, but even if what it does is it triggers a conversation like the one we're having there around, do we feel more Chorley, do we feel more Lancashire, does it matter? The important thing, what we've tried to do at Digital Lancashire over the years, is as and when there's been specific pockets of activity, clusters have naturally emerged. We didn't just kind of look at the map and go, let's go Chorley, Preston, Lancaster, Burnley. It just so happened that activity was emerging and happening in these places, and that they emerged naturally. So it's not something we've done to stir the pot. It's just been to facilitate and help those clusters, but a vital consideration, Gemma. So thank you for raising that. And yeah, everyone have a look at the 2025, because it's a fascinating take on Lancashire.
I think a lot of really useful information there, Tom, just on background stuff as well. And I think one of the things Digital Lancashire that we've been very conscious to try and achieve is to develop the clusters, because trying to cover every corner of the county is a task in its own. And because of this parochialism that Tom has mentioned, we're trying to get clusters up and running now, and we see that as being quite a key initial step, because we've got strength there. We've touched on Chorley. Burnley is well known for Burnley bond holes and some of the other things they do there. Lancaster we've talked about at length as well. So it's trying to just try to define all of that and get those equalities across all of those areas really in their own rights, and from that base we can then have this single, hopefully more of a single voice around it for Digital Lancashire, and promote and advertise, market everything that we do. I mean, Rachel McQueen at Marketing Lancashire at the moment is going through a big campaign called Redefining Lancashire. There's an innovation month actually running at the moment in the whole of the county, with talks on pretty well every day. So again, if you haven't seen that, I'd say go and have a look and see. There's some interesting areas there on that. So it's kind of an awakening this month really, not only with what we're doing, but also I would also promote the next year in 2021. We intend to have a proper festival, and by that I mean a physical one where we can actually meet and discuss, and probably over a week. So again, it's something that we'd like you all to get involved in at some point, and come back to you on that one as well. Again, I'm just conscious of time now, we're getting towards the end, but is there anything else that anybody wants to say or contribute in?
Duncan?
Yes.
Yeah, just something that was sort of crossing my mind as Al was talking, and then Gemma, which probably quite controversial given what you just said, but never mind. So I agree with Al about identities. I agree that the focus should be on what we can do, what we are capable of doing, rather than historically what we've been seen to do. And I think that crosses all the boundaries. I think that's county-wide. So I suppose one discussion I would put on the table is whether clusters is the right approach, whether clusters should be removed entirely and we should just focus on Lancashire. There will naturally be people within each traditional cluster boundary who will drive action, who will centralise networks in their small regions. But I just think it's a discussion worth having, given what we've just said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one, every time we go to a cluster, we have that conversation as well. And some have even suggested that it's more of a sectoral classification, if you like, around different areas that are digital. We've covered digital today, and we had a situation last year where the sort of mechanical engineering type more organisation wants to get involved with Digital Lancashire, and there was quite a lot of debate then around whether they were core or not, and all this kind of thing. So, I don't think it's set in stone, it's fluid. And I think, again, part of today is to listen to that kind of, discussion, suggestions to put things on the table and talk it through, And in fact, that could itself be an event that we might put on in the future, just to raise that kind of level of debate and discussion, because I think it's healthy. No, I think, I say, I think there's lots of information in the chat area there. I think I've mentioned most things, Joe, haven't I now? I think in terms of the chat, I think there's nothing that I've missed in that. I think we'll sort of draw it to a close now, if everybody's okay with that. And what I'd just like to say is thank you so much to our panelists, all of you, for putting your time aside to come and join us and give us, your expertise and opinion. We really do appreciate it. And I hope there'll be more things we can work with you on. Also, just again, thank our sponsors again, ABGI and Hiscox. And please do, if you haven't, have a look at some of the other events that are coming up. Joe's worked incredibly hard to get all these off. There's Through the Looking Glass, which is a diversity and inclusion event on later on. And we've actually got the digital ones on tomorrow with Blackpool and so forth. So, if you're curious or nosy or you just want to join in, then please do come along to those. But I think at that stage we'll draw a close and say thank you very much. Stay safe, and we hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you.